It was the week of August 28th, 2009, and little 3C was only 14 years old, but very excited for the sequel to Rob Zombie's Halloween. So excited he even went to Hot Topic to purchase a t-shirt of the movie to wear for when he goes to see it in theaters. The only problem was the 3C household was a little tight on money, and his father informed him we wouldn't be able to see the movie come this weekend, and it might take a while before we can. And 14-year-old 3C was left with one option: to cry his eyes out and beg his father until he gave in. And of course, because a father does not like seeing his kid, who is now a freshman in high school, cry over seeing a movie, he gave in. 3C's excitement could not have been any bigger in this moment, and after 30 minutes into the movie, he looked around and completely regretted his decision. This was the life lesson Chris had to learn, that he will no longer ever again in his entire life beg someone to join him for a movie, because you never know how it'll turn out. That right there, my friends, is a true story of how I went to go see Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, and I had not seen it ever since, until last night. But seriously, I remember being unbelievably excited for the sequel to Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 and just counting down the days for it to be released in theaters, because I absolutely loved what he did with his first movie. But apparently Rob Zombie himself wasn't even that excited to come back to Halloween, as it took a lot of studio convincing and bags of money for him to come back. The thing that convinced Rob Zombie the most to come back, though, was the promise that he would be given full creative control and can do whatever he wants, since his first film made buckets of money at the box office. So what happens now when you let Rob Zombie go 100% crazy? White horses, baby! Let's go ahead and hit play with the sequel to Rob Zombie's Halloween from 2009. So with the opening of Halloween 2, we get an explanation for what will be the most annoying and ridiculous part of this movie: the white horse. Even reading this explanation for what the metaphor behind the white horse is will not be clear enough to audience, so let me go ahead and translate this text for y'all. I wanted to find a way to pay my wife to be part of this movie because I killed her in the last one. Rob Zombie. I stand by that. I feel like that is the only reason he brought back Deborah Myers, Sherry Moon, who is Rob Zombie's real life wife, to be part of this movie, because, well, he wanted to give her a slice of that paycheck. But from there we cut to Laurie Strode, who is now walking down the streets of Haddonfield after having shot her own brother in the face due to the events of the previous Halloween movie, where she encounters Sheriff Brackett, once again played by Brad Dourif. That is by far the only good thing about this movie. I'll get into why in a sec. Laurie is then quickly transported to the hospital, where they will tend to her wounds from the previous movie, and this is something I do like from Halloween 2. That her ending up in the hospital actually makes sense in this sequel, as opposed to the original Halloween 2 sequel, where Laurie ended up in the hospital because she fell down a couple steps of stairs and had one slice to the arm from Michael Myers, where here we get real close-up shots of all the damage she went through, broken bones, broken fingernails. It is grotesque and gruesome, and exactly the kind of stuff we would be expecting in a Rob Zombie sequel to Halloween. So far, completely on board with everything going on in this movie, and I'm having a good time. We then cut back to the Myers house, where it takes about 6 paramedics to go ahead and lift up Michael Myers to take away his dead body, being escorted off by the most perverted people to ever work in the police department.
You gotta look at the naked chick. She still look good to me. Nice old titties are hanging out. I got wood just zip-locking her up.
Thankfully, a cow is there to make the sacrifice, so we don't have to hear any more dialogue from these two. We'll never forget you, Mooney the cow, causing Michael Myers to wake up from his slumber as he walks slow motion towards this coroner, who's left with only one word in his vocabulary:
Fuck! 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 Fuck!
slicing his head off in a real Rob Zombie grotesque way, which is, again, the only good parts of this movie is some of the practical effects and just unsettling, gory looks at some of these dead bodies. But not even great gory kills can save this movie, because as Michael Myers looks down the road, he sees a white horse and his mother walking towards them, now adding a supernatural element to this film. I'm gonna go ahead and rant off here for a little bit. I hate that Rob Zombie decided to take this approach with the sequel. One of the main reasons I really like that first Rob Zombie Halloween is because, like I said, he takes a realistic approach to Michael Myers, giving him a cliched life of a broken home that most serial killers have, and then throughout that film continuing to ground Michael in reality. And I thought this is where they were going to continue off with Michael staying away from cults, or just eye-rolling moments of things that no human could survive, but Michael just seems to. And this whole white horse element and metaphor along with it just does not seem to fit Michael Myers. I mentioned I respected the first Rob Zombie Halloween movie because he did something different and unique with Michael Michael that I thought worked, but not every time you do something different and unique, it's gonna work, and this is the example of taking it way too far. But going back into what the movie is showing us here, we see Laurie Strode waking up in the hospital trying to recover from her wounds, even as far as to going to check on her friend Annie, who did survive the events of the first movie, even though she looks like Chucky from Bride of Chucky. I still think you're gorgeous, Danielle Harris. But the reunion is cut short when Octavia Spencer, aka Ma, steps into the room, instructing Laurie that she needs to go back to her room as she gets called off for an emergency. And this whole hospital sequence is actually something I do love about Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, and I feel like I was almost tricked into thinking this is what the rest of the movie was going to be, is almost his recreation of the original Halloween 2, setting it in a hospital on the same night of Halloween. Would have made for an uninspired, unoriginal sequel, but I would have much rather have taken that B-rated horror movie over what else the rest of this was. Because I feel like this is the peak of Rob Zombie's Michael Myers before he just goes straight downhill the rest of this movie, just like some of the shots of him in the rain with that mask that still looks good at this point. I like the shadowing of blood from the upper side of the mask that most likely comes from the bullet wound that Laurie gave him to his face. How moments in here they're hiding the eyes a lot more using creative lighting. Even get a little bit of red lights. But just as I'm appreciating this mask and this form of Michael Myers in this sequel, right when he's about to axe off Laurie, we find out this was all entirely a dream sequence that Laurie was having nightmares of in the house of Sheriff Brackett and Annie 1 year later after the events of Rob Zombie's Halloween. Why did we just spend almost 30 minutes looking at everything that basically turned out to be a dream sequence? Rob Zombie literally complained in interviews that he didn't want to go ahead and recreate moments, that he wanted to do 100% of his own thing.
Well, there was weird meddling. It was just like kind of psychotic meddling.
How so?
Like my phone was ringing all the time when I'm on set working, and it'd be like, we think it should be this. I'm like, since the first one was sort of a, 50% of it was a retelling of John Carpenter's movie, I thought, well, to go back and 100% do something different would be pretty exciting.
So why did you just waste so much time recreating things and not doing your own thing? Because after this dream sequence, the movie really doesn't have a plot anymore. Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is more of a catch up and see where they are now kind of movie, which I would be perfectly fine with because I do like how they explore the themes of PTSD and how Michael stepping into their lives has affected them. Laurie throughout the film has changed drastically, becoming this punk rock girl who is in therapy, taking meds, works at a coffee shop. Honestly, it feels like she's a completely different character, and one could expect that after the events she went through with the first Halloween, but this progression of her becoming almost this punk rock girl just does not seem to fit right. I mean, look at Annie, Danielle Harris's character. She went through almost the exact same trauma, survived a near-death experience with Michael, and she's still about the same character. She's also dealing with PTSD, depression, and trying to move on with her life, but she didn't slap a Nirvana shirt on herself and stop washing her hair. Michael McDowell's character as Dr. Loomis goes ahead and 100% exploits the events of Rob Zombie's Halloween, turning it into a book. And like I mentioned in my previous video, I don't like this version of Dr. Loomis, who is more interested in the fame, recognition, and money.
No, it's the wrong photograph. I mean, this is old Loomis. Well, I'm not going in there until you go get me a cup of PG Tips with a splash of milk, and I want it sizzling hot.
But I feel the movie does do a good job of mixing in the consequences of his book with some of the citizens of Haddonfield, like the father of one of the victims in the first movie, or how he didn't even have the courtesy to tell Laurie in person about her birth family and instead just writing it in the book and waiting for her to find out in real life. It's moments like those that does kind of pay off with this version of Loomis. It just sucks that almost every character in this movie is unlikable. The only remaining character in Halloween 2 I actually care to see and have some screen time with is Brad Dourif's character. The father's doing his best to accommodate Annie and Laurie, continue being the sheriff, being a watchful father, and the heartbreaking sequence that goes down when they finally kill Danielle Harris's character. Brad Dourif in this movie is the diamond in the rough that is Halloween 2. And I know it sounds like I'm jumping around a lot and not really explaining the movie like I usually do with all these other Halloween reviews, but that's what Halloween 2 feels like. It's just a mess of a movie that splices up what different characters are doing while intertwining kills that Michael Myers is doing where he's not even wearing his mask half of the time. I hate every shot of Hobo Michael Myers with that hood and Hagrid beard, and it makes no sense to me why this version of Michael Myers decides to wait till Halloween to kill, or even the fact that he just stores away his mask and pulls it out when he wants to kill somebody. The Michael Myers you set up in the previous movie always wanted to cover his face no matter what, and now this one just wants to show off his purty face? I can't tell you how pissed I was when Michael is in the strip club, I guess getting revenge on the people who were bossing around his mother at this place, and one of the strippers goes ahead and rips half his mask off. It's just not threatening when we see the man behind the mask. And it's probably why it was impossible for me to find a Halloween 2 mask, but what do I do? Oh shit, I guess I could do that. Well, that's a happy little accident. I'm glad I could find at least one enjoyable thing from these dream sequences, because I just could not stand them. And look, I'm totally fine with symbolism, metaphors, creepy pumpkin people eating at a dinner table while Laurie and Annie are just going crazy. But this just does not seem to fit the Michael Myers that you've established, Rob Zombie, so why throw all of this in? Especially when we get towards the finale.
Chief, the state police believe the perp is barricaded inside of a shack just north of the crash site.
And oh crap, that's the voice actor for Patrick on SpongeBob talking to the voice actor for Chucky. But in the finale, when Michael's finally able to get his hands on Laurie, you established in the last movie that she already burned that bridge with her brother, and Michael now just wants to kill her and get rid of all his family members. But now because of this White Horse subplot, now Michael wants to do this little ritual that even Laurie herself can see because I guess it's in the Myers blood. It's the same cuckoo, culty, weird stuff that was part of Halloween 6 that ruined the character. But now with Michael and Laurie trapped in this shack in the middle of nowhere, police officials start to arrive surrounding the place to where Dr. Loomis sees it all happening on his TV, and I assume he's like in the dead central city of Haddonfield, but literally within seconds and the next scene, Dr. Loomis somehow drives up to the middle of nowhere shack in Haddonfield and wants to redeem himself and prove to the world that he's not money hungry. He does want to take a little responsibility for Michael. Go ahead and talk to him.
Careful, SpongeBob! Careful, SpongeBob! SpongeBob, careful! Careful, SpongeBob! Careful, SpongeBob!
Patrick, the lid's already off.
But before Dr. Loomis can even get his redemption arc, he goes ahead and faces off against Michael, getting a brutal kill, one where we even see the brains of Dr. Loomis. Still, his sacrifice didn't go in vain, as it gave officers a shot to shoot at Michael, hitting him and making him fall back on some farm equipment, as Michael Myers starts to die off, then freeing Laurie from whatever weird spell she was trapped in.
I love you, brother.
This guy just killed your best friend, your foster family. You don't love this man. Just because you found out you're related to him does not mean you actually care about him. And that felt so out of character, but Rob Zombie wasn't done there, because he does the tired trend I'm sick of in these movies with baiting us of the passing of the kitchen knife to the next killer. That would be Laurie Strode killing off her brother and then putting on the Michael Myers mask to walk off and face the Haddonfield Police Department, leading to her being committed once again to a mental institution where she starts to see visions of the White Horse and her biological mother, hinting to the audience that now Laurie Strode will be taking up the mantle as the next killer. And of course, we will see none of that BS. Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 was the biggest disappointment I ever saw in theaters, and I mean it. This was the movie that made me go, I'm never begging someone else to come with me to a film, because just the amount of guilt, embarrassment, and pain I had for knowing that I made my father spend money for a movie that was just god-awful. It was just so sad to be so enthralled and excited for what could have happened in this Michael Myers world, what other movies could have happened. They even were planning to make Halloween 3D set in this universe. Can you imagine doing all this White Horse stuff, metaphors, and BS, and then going, Halloween 3D, coming to a theater near you? Yeah, it's a good thing they ended it here, man. Those are just my thoughts on Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. I know there still will always be some people who like this movie, and I'm very curious to hear from you guys down below. Maybe you can open my eyes to something I just didn't see in this movie. But honestly, after the film ended, when I rewatched it, I told myself audibly, I'm never watching this film again. And I'm gonna stand by that. Don't forget to like and subscribe, but I will catch you guys on the next and final Halloween review.